Good morning. Hope everyone out there is doing quite well today, and hope where you are it is proving to be a start to a wonderful day wherever you are. I'm going to give a few minutes for people to start coming on before we get started here. So far on this quilt, we have done both of our star blocks. We have done the Christmas tree, and today we're going to be working on the letters to joy. So good morning, Linda. Welcome. We're just kind of getting started, and a question that I have for you, and I'll check in again a little bit later, and that is if you would let me know in the chat box, are you making the quilt? Are you following along and just getting the tips and ideas? Are you going to make a table runner, some other type of gift, use it on a bag, whatever? And just kind of give me a heads up as to how you're going to use these blocks. I am excited about this quilt. I'm going to do the whole thing at some point. I'm certainly not there right now. I don't have all of my stars done. I certainly don't have all of my trees done. I've got the majority of the cutting done, and so this will be done, and I'll have it, I know, for next Christmas, or who knows, maybe I'll get it done during the holiday season. So we spent this week putting up our tree and getting all of the decorations in the house. I will say that my husband did the majority of the work on that, and I am so appreciative of him for doing that. That is awesome to have great help when it's a busy time of year. And so it's good to see all of you on here. Good morning. And so different ones of you are working on different things. So again, if you will just let me know if you're making these blocks, how you're going to use them, and what you're going to do with them. So let's take a look at the first one that we did. Was the smaller block with the outside borders on it, and so we've got that one completed at this point. We have the larger Ohio star with the square and a square for the center part of that. And then last week we did the tree. And I'll have to say that as the tree went in, the block started looking better when we started last week with just this part right here. It didn't look like much, but as you work on it and finish it up, it's looking pretty good. So today we're going to work on the letters, and these really aren't difficult at all. It's basically following the picture, putting them in order, and making a decision on how you want how it's going to go together the easiest. So here you have, again, they're laying it out for you for the J block, and they tell you a little bit about how to lay it out and put it together. And we're doing the flip and sew method again, which we've done on the star blocks, we've done on the tree blocks. So that's not a new concept today. And just take note of the different sizes, the 2 1/4 and the 3 7/8 in there a couple of times. And so as we look at this J block, the question becomes, how is it going to go together the easiest? And I would say that the first thing that you need to do is do the sew and flip on the bottom of this B strip print fabric with your background fabric of D, and do the same thing with A. And once you have those two done, then as we work on this, the first thing that you would probably want to do is attach the C strip to the F strip. And then once that is done, then you're going to want to put the B, let me get things a little bit out of the way here. At the bottom of that block and put that together and sew it on. So at that point you have the entire center piece done, and then you'll want to attach the E strip to this particular strip here. That will go on that side of the block, and you will sew that together, and basically you have your J completed. So it's not difficult, it goes together pretty quickly. And then you'll sew your H, which, take note, that is wider than your G border on this side, and then your two 12.5-inch eye borders at the top and bottom, and the block will be completed at that point. So again, it's pretty straightforward once you figure out and get an idea of how you want that block to come together. So make those decisions. I'm going to disassemble those and move them out of the way for just a second. And then we're going to look at our O block. This one is a little bit fussier in the fact that you have these 4 blocks with 2 different sizes of squares on the corners where you flip and sew. So I've got one here that we'll do together, just to show you in terms of that. But I want to talk a little bit about making sure that you get them laid out correctly. Notice that the C flip and sew is larger, and those go to the outside of the block. And so if we were going to put this block together here, we have to make sure that the larger block is on the outside, and the larger block again is on the outside here. So once we have that completed, then we know what we have to do to sew this bottom corner. I'm just going clockwise around the block. So I have my block there. I want to put my larger one on the bottom corner, so I am going to line that up right along that corner, and I am going to sew from here to here, and I'm going to use my mat to guide me with that at this point instead of marking it. If you do not have a guide and you need to mark it, be sure to mark that. And again, holding it in place, it's often a very good idea to drop a pin in that side. So I put a pin right here out of my way, but I want it to be held in place for that. So I'm just taking a stitch in. I'm going to adjust down here at the bottom, and then keep that point on that center line all the way through. And then I will know that the what I would have marked as the line and sewn on is exactly the same, because I kept that point in the right place. So once you have that sewn on, the next thing that you need to do is set the seam. I more or less do that, and then you're going to trim this a 1/4 inch away. Of course, you can use your ruler and rotary cutter. I'm just using the scissors because it was laying here in front of me. And get that out of the way. And now again, when you press this, because you're working with bias, hit the edge of that with the edge of your iron, and then simply set it down like that, so that it's just sitting on the seam line. You don't have to move it or anything, and you get a nice flat trim in there. All right, so then the other side that we're working with is that D point, and so we're going to put that one in the top corner and make sure that you cover those corners so that you don't see any of the background fabric. And again, I'm going to drop a pin right here, and I'm going to sew from the top point here to the bottom point there, using that flip and sew method. Again, a couple of slow stitches to make sure that I have my point on that top block right on that center line on my mat, which eliminates the marking, because anything that I can do to make the job a little bit quicker. And then again, I am going to trim off that bottom part and eliminate the bulk there. And I want to set my seam. I want to, again, just hit the seam with my iron and then let it sit for a second or two. And I have my last one completed, and it finishes off that part of the O. So let me move my paper out of the way for a minute. So now that I have those four, I want to start putting my block together. And how I'm going to do that is that with A, so number one, I'm sewing my flip and sews to all of my four printed blocks. Then I'm going to make my units. There are two of them with the print to the top and the print to the bottom. And I'm going to put those in between. My little table space here. I keep saying I'm going to figure out a better way to do that. I haven't yet. Haven't taken the time to do that. So as you can see, that completes the center part of it and the O. And as you're sewing these together, this would be pretty much, well, kind of like a 9-patch. Sewing the top row together, you've got your center row made, and you're sewing your bottom together, and then you're going to put your two side pieces on, and the top and the bottom, and you're completed with the O. On the O, making sure that when you line this up in the corners, that you're also making sure that these two will meet, because you want that to be even as you come in. So when you're sewing that, you'll want that to hit so that those two meet right there at that corner. So making sure to align those as you sew that joy together. And then the last one is the Y, and it's the one I wanted to spend a little bit more time with because we're talking templates. And a couple of things to talk about when we're doing templates. Let me just see. If there was any questions here. All right, so let's take a look at the template one. I didn't see any specific questions, just in that brief look at the chat box. So if you have any questions, please put them up there, and I will get to them before we say goodbye today. So the top part of the Y is templates, and in your pattern on the back side you have the three pieces that go into that. letter Y. And up here where it's telling you what to cut for the Y, it is talking about template B and template B reversed. So you need both the one that's on here, and then you need to reverse it. What I did is I simply went to the other side, put it on my light box I could see through, and I drew my templates on the other side. So now I have my reverse. It does cover the writing here, but that wasn't a big deal to me. I used a Sharpie pen, so it was nice and dark. And then I used my favorite template material, and that's freezer paper. I doubled my freezer paper and cut those and drew those onto my freezer paper, cut them out, and I labeled which one was my reversed one, and which fabric went with that particular pattern on it, so I would have it if I want to use it for future use. So that's how I did my template. Now, if you were using template plastic or simply printing this out on your printer twice, you would do a reverse of this as you print it. The key to printing and getting the size correctly is paying attention to this 1-inch square here. When you print, preview it the first time and actually measure this and make sure that your printer is printing it at 1 inch, because if it's not, this is not going to fit into your block correctly, and so you'll need to adjust the size on your printer if this does not measure 1 inch on the printed sheet that you do, because that's what they're suggesting, that you print these at the actual size that they are here or at 100%. So when I simply turned it over and drew them on the side, I knew it was correct, because this is the way the pattern came, and I checked my 1-inch block. It was 1 inch. So I felt pretty confident about that, and I traced it onto my freezer paper, and then rough cut those out and press them to the back side of my fabric. And then now I would come along, and I simply drew my outside line. I didn't put my 1/4 inch lines in. It's probably a good idea if you do, so that when you're aligning these, that you know for sure that you're getting them aligned correctly. I was feeling brave, so I just put the outside and included my 1/4 inch in. And if you live in an area where it snows, watching me cut this is probably, you know, not as enjoyable as watching snowfall, but or watching paint dry, as the saying goes. Just take your time and make sure that you're cutting carefully, and the same thing with drawing. Take your time. You'll be happy with the results if you do. And then now I have my 3 pieces for I thought I had all 3 pieces. Oh, here they are. All right. So I've done this for the white pieces. I did it for the green, and I put one of the blocks together. And so once you get these cut out, I want to point out to you that with number C, the square part of this goes into the corner, and the same thing with B. It goes in the corner on this edge. If you can if you can look right here and see that that, makes that 90-degree angle there and the 90-degree angle here. And then this piece will, this is actually needs to be reversed, so it's not going to fit in here right at this. It would be like this. And you would place that in, putting your lines together. And when you're lining that up, making sure that you get that completely aligned, and then that gets sewn together. And but you're going to do that in reverse when you take the paper off. And I have not cut these two, so I'm not taking that paper off. But you're aligning your seams C to the long length of the A print piece along there, sewing that and pressing it back. And then you're going to put B the same way, so that you have your 90-degree angle up here and you have your 90-degree angle here. And when these two pieces come together, pay as close attention, because down here you can make up a little bit if they're just a bit off in your seam allowance, but here it's going to be very blatantly noticeable if these do not align. So make sure that you take the time to make sure those aligned, pin them or glue them together in place, and meet those, and then you will sew your bottom part of the Y to these two pieces, sew on each side, and your top and bottom, and you will have that completed. And this one's a little bit trickier only because you're sewing on an angle, but when you put it on your machine, it's a straight 1/4-inch seam as you go down. Now the other thing that is possible, if you struggle with matching those up, I would simply take these and recreate the size of this centerpiece, which they, all of the sizes are given for you in the pattern. I would draw them out and possibly do them as a make a template, and then sew them together, as a, and I cannot come up with the word. What is the word that I'm looking for? Paper piecing. That's the word I'm looking for. I would paper piece this, and then you have your accuracy. It's going to be exactly the size that you need it to be. And so that's another possibility, is simply drawing this out and using it. And I would draw it on graph paper probably and use it as a paper pieced unit. And then you're going to get it correct, and then sew those two pieces together. So any questions on that you might have, and that would complete the all the parts that we need for this quilt. And then next week we're going to go through sewing it together, which is quite simple actually, but we're going to talk a little bit about the quilting of it and putting the binding on, and going through that process again. And so we'll finish this up for next week, and how we might quilt it and sew it together, so with the joy. And if you have any questions on the templates or putting those words together, please check in, go to the forum, write your questions out, look at that, and we'll work on getting the answers to you for this. To me, it's quite easy. As long as you get your templates made, copy them, put them on template plastic, doubled freezer paper works for me. That's what I particularly like to do. Using your corner pieces here to fit them in, and they should sew in quite well for you. And you should have this is the left side, and you'll make your right side make your left side on over here for your Y, and put those together. Sew these 3 pieces together at the bottom. Put your sides on and your top and bottom, and you've completed the joy. And these do go together quite quickly. They sew together much faster than it takes you to cut them. So always iron your patterns to the back side of your fabric. And I think that's pretty much what you need to know for this particular section of the quilt. Let's take a look over here, and let me see if you have any questions. I agree, Sherry. Hopefully everyone who is watching is safe across the Midwest where the tornadoes and the bad storms. Ours is supposed to arrive tonight. All right, getting ideas, getting the tips. That's wonderful. And some of you are doing the embroidery with Alex, so am I. I'm excited about that. Always learn a ton of stuff from her. And all right. Yeah, lots of projects before Christmas. I agree. And hopefully most of you are almost done with your projects for Christmas, and you aren't stressed over that, and that goes smoothly for you. I've got one yet to finish before Christmas, and so I get that for sure. So again, as always, I just am so appreciative of you popping in and watching these on Saturday morning, and hopefully you're getting some good information and things that will be helpful to you. And always put your projects up on the forum. We love seeing what you do, and it's inspiring. It gives us encouragement as we look at the things that you complete and know that we too can get in there and get things done, and in the midst of all the busyness of the season. So next week, as I already said, we're going to finish this up and talk about the quilting process and how to get that accomplished, putting the binding on, finishing that up, and then it's almost time for Christmas, and that just is mind-boggling to me that it's come so quick. So enjoy this week and finishing up with the words joy, and hopefully as you are working on your projects, you too find great joy in what you are doing in the upcoming season, and please stay safe. So we'll see you next time.